Why do civilizations collapse? And is there actually something good about it? Welcome to Big Tree Tales, where we explore the connections between faith, history, and society. And today we're going to look at a question that many people feel different about, and they rarely ask it directly. Why do civilizations collapse? Are we, as an American society, on the brink of collapse? What's happening with our society? Why are we so divided? And one of the biggest political debates right now in the US is immigration. And some people describe the situation at our southern border as a humanitarian crisis. And I can see that if you see people from South America or Asian countries or the whole Middle East countries coming, and they come out of despair. Yes, there is despair. I have lived in South America, and I know why people want to be in the US, because they suffer immense crisis. And if you come from Venezuela, you have a hard time and you want to be safe. And that's probably something you can understand. But the other part describes it as an illegal immigration crisis, and that's true as well. So, political party of the Democrats, I can say that, like, try to weaponize that and bring as many as you can in, so they become dependent on the government, and so they can actually sustain their votes, and hopefully they vote then the blue party and become America, make it a unilateral Democrat nation. And I would say both sides, they have something to say. There's an argument that people are suffering, but there is also an argument that you have to come in a country legally. And I can speak with that with authority, because I came into this country legally. And it was a long and hard road. It was not easy, actually. I think it's about 1,000 papers you have to submit, and you wait for a long, long time. And you need to have patience and endurance, and you need to go through these things, and it's not easy, I can tell you. But um, the the argument is becoming extreme tense, because it's no longer okay, should we have immigrants in or not, or how many. It becomes a matter of life and death, and it divides our society so much that even I think many of my friends who are conservatives, who lean to this notion like, oh no, we really shouldn't care about people because they're illegal. And I get it, because it drives a fear. It makes you overwhelmed with all these people coming and flowing into a country. We can't really help everybody. And as a European, I can say that as well. Europe has lost this battle. And so you have so many foreign nationalities, foreign religions, they will not be able to sustain. We will see where this goes. But it's polarizing our society. And that's the part I try to focus on. I'm not trying to save the immigration crisis, but I try to say something else. Um, that there's a path, and I'm going to say that at the end, how we can move forward and overcome this huge problem, because it reveals something way deeper. It's about the state of our civilization, this whole crisis, and maybe some others. So politics cannot solve this problem. They can do things. I mean, we have Donald Trump, who is actually, of course, bringing ICE in and pushing people out. But we have, like, how many? Like 30 million in the country. I don't know if we can really bring them all out and have them then maybe reapply. Not sure. And we expect something from politics that they can't really do. When people broadly agree about things like what is right and wrong, what is responsibility meaning, what does justice look like, then you can go with a country. You can steer or govern a country. But when this moral or spiritual framework disappears, something strange happens. Politics become more than political decisions. And we know that in the past it was okay to have left or right, but now it becomes a crisis, a cultural and moral question. And this is dividing our country more by the day, but it cannot create shared values. It doesn't bring us together. We can't solve this problem. So to bring our country together, we can do this or that way, but the tension and the division remains, and that makes us weak. Guys, I know you can say, well, yeah, these are idiots of the other side, and both sides tell the other side they're idiots. But both sides in this way are right and wrong. We need to find common ground. We need to unite to fight against the far greater threats that will lie ahead. So let's look at a little historical pattern. Societies and civilizations, they collapsed not first because they were overrun militarily or economically. They were before weakened by a loss of shared moral compass. They lost their vision. They lost spiritual unity. And this happened through all history. Great example is the Roman Empire. They were strong and stable, but over time, cultural foundations of the society began to fracture and trust weakened, and society became divided. And so eventually the political system could no longer hold the society together. They fell apart. And we can see that the Bible speaks about it in the early chapters of Genesis 11. It says about the Tower of Babel. That's where mankind tried to build this unity thing. The people say, let us make a name for ourselves. And this was the vision of a single unitary human civilization, which was to rule the earth and challenge God. Right? So yeah, we are one. We're gonna make it. And then God brought this division upon them by mixing their languages. So they had different languages, so they couldn't speak, and so therefore a language is not only something you don't understand, a foreign language, but it's a different culture. With each language comes a certain culture, a certain, even the language forms a certain inner conviction, which is important, which is good, which is good to talk about. So American culture, language has some, for example, you have a lot of words for good things or vision or direction. And that's what this nation is about. It's ingrained in the language. And so God divided these people and brought them to their knees. And so, but it was also a protection against concentrated human power. So when societies collapse, they do not simply cease to exist. The people are still there. So, but you make a clear cut. And we had that discussion quite often here in the States, like Texas is seceding, or here in my town, Spokane, they try to create the greater Idaho. I get an idea of, can we just leave these guys in Seattle and can we just become a more civilized and stable country? And I think it's Eastern Oregon as well. They try to create something and try to distance themselves. And actually, I think that is a good element to it, to say, okay, if we can't live together, America has these opportunities, and let's create another state. Yes, I think that's a possibility to ease the tensions and to not have constant fights and battles of everyday things. But unity is necessary. And how do we deal with it? We can see that in Israel. Israel emerged actually right out of this Babel disaster. And actually the very next chapter, God calls Abraham and says, hey, Abraham, I want you to leave your home country. And then you have Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. and these guys formed a new faith. Israel received a land, a law, a shared story, and a shared worship. They were worshiping Yahweh, one God. And so they created this unity. And the people demonstrated what it would look like to be the people of God. Many nations were envious, and you couldn't enter that if you weren't Jewish at the time. But they had to protect it. And there were times when we read Ezra, one of the prophets of the Old Testament, and so the Jews came together, and after the exile, and Ezra says, "Hey guys, if you're married to a non-Jewish woman, you need to send these women off." And I think we can see what that entails. Okay, there were households, there were children, there were shared duties, and Ezra said, no. You need to keep your spiritual integrity. We have lost the war. We were in exile because we lost our spiritual integrity. So we need to bring it back. I don't know exactly how that played out, like how they did that really, but they sent off the women and the non-Jewish part of the society. And it was not about ethnicity. We can say now, oh, they were racist. No, it was a spiritual protection and a spiritual identity they were trying to keep. And once you do this, then you can do the other thing, which is so way more compassionate, because the Old Testament as well, you read, says something about compassion. So in Exodus we read, "Do not mistreat the oppressed or the foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt." Or Leviticus, "The foreigner living among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself." So the Bible has two principles here. Yes, protect your identity. And once you protect that, yes, you can be compassionate on people. And I think America did that great in the past. Yes, we take people in. Yes, we help people. Of course. But think about this. If you're a village of 100 people, how many foreigners can you take in? 50? Probably not. 20? Pretty challenging. 10? Maybe 10, but it costs you a few years. So you can't bring in 50 people in a 100 people village from other nationalities, other spiritual backgrounds, because that kills compassion, because you feel threatened. That's very simple. And we've seen that in Europe. I've seen that my home country, we have lost this war. Our politicians have opened the borders for years now, and we have millions and millions of other nationalities there. It's not, do we love them? Yes, I think every single one, as a Christian, I love them. But as a nation, I would say, guys, it's too much. And also there's a difference. If you come as, let's say, in America, we always say America was built on immigrants. It was built on settlers. And I can see the difference. It's people who coming into a nation saying, I want to build my own house, my garden, my fields, and I'm going to contribute to society. I'm working. I'm not relying on welfare. I'm not relying on government aid. No, I'm fighting to make it happen. And that's what I love about America. It rewards the people who work hard. It used to be. It's still. You still have a great country. And then actually the latest or the newest thing is the church. That's the New Testament. And in the New Testament, again, something else happens. We talk about unity and identity as nations. So the New Testament and Jesus gives another message. He says the church becomes a community made up from people from many nations. The Apostle Paul writes that Christ, that he has broken down the wall of hostility between people. But it's a spiritual unity, not a political. I have friends in all parts of the world, and I love them. I'm so happy. I have Christian brothers and sisters in Africa, in South America, in Far East, all over the place. I love them, but they are very different. And I think if we would all live together in one house, always, it's going to be a problem. But now we are connected in Christ, and I don't need to tell them, hey, you need to do your dishes different or whatever. So the church is meant to create unity among the nations, not hostility. And Christianity is meant to bring brotherly love in separate nations. So that's what God's plan is. Nations form different ethnicities, form different spiritual bonds, but they can coexist in love. And that's what needs America. We need to learn that. We cannot really fight any other country who just does not agree with that. Okay, that's another topic. So our challenge is, how do we come together and overcome the disunity which America has, which we suffer from? And we cannot rely on politics. No Donald Trump, no whoever from the Democrat side could do that. It's not going to happen. I think it's going to happen if we, as a society, come together, and it maybe happen in cities or on communities, and even what we do here right now. Maybe if you like this channel, I will ask you to subscribe and support the channel by just watching the video and comment. But we need to come up with some simpler rules, and we had them. We had the 10 Commandments, especially in America. I think you found them in every household. And way more than being a religious document, it was a shared compass of values. Love your neighbors, honor your father and mother, love the Lord your God. These were simple rules, and as long as society lived by it, we create a common vision. I think right now we need to re-establish something like this. That's my thinking. What we need. We need shared spiritual foundations. And without them, we go down. With them, we will survive. I have a little example. I don't want to be so negative, so I think let's look at something. I was honored to be in a project down in South America, and we created villages. And the villages, from the very beginning, we thought, well, they need to have some rules. And we came up with 3 very simple rules. I confess my faith. I treat others with kindness and refuse to keep bitterness in my heart. 3, I help others whenever I can. These rules were very simple. At the beginning, I thought they're way too simple. They're not spiritually enough. But that gave us a shared direction. People know that. And if you live in a society, a small society, you realize if you do not live in unity, you do not survive. I think Americans understand that, especially the pioneers. You need to help each other. And this is a great, still a great character of Americans. They help. As far as I have experienced, Americans are just great. They help you. When you're in need, they help you. So what do you guys think? What could be the new set of rules? Maybe it's the 10 Commandments. I like them. Maybe it's something else. I think it has to be spiritual. I put out 5. Maybe you like them. Maybe you don't. Maybe you have other suggestions what we do. What about these 5 rules? I confess my faith. 2nd, I speak the truth. 3, I treat other people with respect. 4, I take responsibility for my actions. And 5, I help others when I'm able. These 5 things, I mean, you can change them, but such principles we need. And then we can go together as a society in a future which is great. I believe Americans have a great history. They have a great future if they unite and become one nation under God. Thank you so much for listening. As always, my name is Tom from Big Tree Tales.